good enough. Welcome to If the Walls Could Talk in Buffalo live on a Friday morning. Don, how you doing?
Not bad. We are in different locations as we are separated by a 20-mile glacier of various levels.
How much snow you got there?
Higher and
6 feet?
thicker near me. Apparently, we won here where I live. The snow
You won.
battle.
That's a Pyrrhic victory, right? That's the definition of a Pyrrhic victory, and one that you guys have gotten pounded. We're getting snow now, nothing big. My cousin's husband's flying in for the game this weekend. This is we're going to talk about this. Where does this rank in the history of Bills home games? I got a pretty maybe hot take, maybe not. But let's go back first for people who are going to join us maybe for the first time or don't remember. You started there interning at the Bills in 1988, became the director of football operations administration in the early 2000s. The Bills-Chiefs rivalry. Last week, 2 weeks ago, we were talking Bills-Dolphins and all that rivalry meant. There's obviously Bills-Patriots throughout the year. This one's an underrated one to me. Like the Chiefs and the Bills, all the way back to the AFL days, which neither one of us were really around for and could speak to. But then, man, in the 90s, that it was heated, and it was probably the best non-divisional rival that the Bills had. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, for some reason, in my head, the Raiders popped in there because of a couple of playoff appearances. But I think what might make it different, not to get ahead of ourselves, was a regular season game in 91 where, the Bills were at their peak and just went to Kansas City and got destroyed on a Monday night. And it looked ominous.
Humiliated almost, right? Humiliated.
Yeah.
That wasn't just a loss. That was a game that I still remember. What is this? 30 years later, how thoroughly they got dismantled and dominated at their absolute peak. And those Chiefs teams were downright scary. They were scary to watch. They must have been scary to play.
Yeah. You're right. It was
all right. So let's go backwards.
Yeah,
you got a little bit of a glitch here. Can you hear me?
Yep. We're good on my end. Yep.
Okay. All good. All right. So let's go back. I sent you a football reference page. All of the Bills Chiefs games throughout the years. And again, you started there in 1988. The first game that they played,
a few months in 89, hired in 1990. Yeah.
The first game that they played during the Don Purdy era would have been that 1991 regular season game at Arrowhead. Maybe before we get into that game, you traveled with the team many times. I'm sure you've been to Arrowhead. Describe to me what you think about Arrowhead, your impressions, and how that's like the loudest place on earth outside.
It is. It's cool. It's the closest, I would say, closest parallel to here in Buffalo. The stadium's out in the middle of nowhere. It is kind of cool because you see the Royal Stadium, whatever it's called, Kaufman or whatever it was. It's been that's always kind of cool. The Royals did have some good years, so it makes it feel like a really good sports town. It's population wise, I think it's pretty similar to us, but when you go there, we've said this before. When you go in the stadium, because of the colors of the seats and everything, you know where you are. That's not the case with every stadium. If I recall, during your time on the coaching staff, that you also played there too, so you got a taste, right?
Sure did. Yeah, we'll talk about that. Where'd you guys sit? Like, where did the administration, of the opposition team sit?
We were in a press box. It was probably it wasn't great in terms of sideline view. We were up in a corner, but the executives sat behind glass, so we didn't really get a full feel for how loud it was during the game. If a game started at 1, we usually were there till like 11:30, 11:45 on the sideline, and you start to get a feel of it. But kind of like in Buffalo, the stadium's not filled yet because they do a fine job of tailgating too. They don't have quite the reputation that Bill's Mafia has, but you smell a lot of cooking meat.
Sure thing. Yeah, it's really an interesting place. You know, like you said, it's probably what 20 miles outside downtown. And I actually was lucky enough to be able to take the tunnel that goes from the locker room area of Arrowhead right down and drops you off at home plate of Kauffman or Royal Stadium.
Did
So
you?
there's a
Very
tunnel that
cool.
goes underneath the parking lot, and you end up walking out, and you're right behind home plate of the Royal Stadium. In the parking lot, the only way I can describe the parking lots at Arrowhead for people that haven't been there, it feels like the parking lot of Wally World, right? Like it's just a
Yeah,
sea of parking because
it's
there's
vast.
literally, Highmark Stadium is in a neighborhood sort of, and there's vast lots, but there's also things around it. The Arrowhead Stadium complex has nothing else around it, so it feels like it never ends. So it feels like you're entering Wally World. So 1991, the Bills coming off their first Super Bowl loss, dominant team, big Monday night game in Kansas City. I remember the buildup for it. It was Christian Okoye, Barry Word. The Chiefs would kind of cycle through older quarterbacks. They didn't have an established quarterback. They had Steve DeBerg for a while, then famously Joe Montana. Man, Don, 33-6 on a Monday
Yeah.
night in October of 1991. What do you remember about that game?
Uh, there were no excuses. It wasn't like, Thurman was out, or Bruce may have been out. I think Bruce might have been injured, but still, we had our full complement of defense. Kelly, um, you didn't see it coming. You did not, you could have easily thought this is going to be a tough one on the road. We might not win this game, but it'll be okay. They're not a division game, but you certainly didn't expect to get humiliated on national TV. Remember too, back then there was no Thursday night game. I don't know if there was a Sunday night game yet. I think that was still out. So the Monday night game was a big deal. The Chiefs, we're supposed to be a contender, and wow, they look like the best team in the league that night. It was nothing went right at all. Yeah.
Christian Okoye, Barry Word. So after a game like that in the building, not just that game, but games throughout the years where the team just gets really, beat bad. Not a tough loss, not a hey, blame the refs or one bounce here, one bounce there. What's the vibe in the building like on a Monday or a Tuesday after, just a beatdown?
Yeah, everyone kind of just looks at each other. You don't even have to talk. You just shake your head like, "Oi." You know that the coaches are doing their job. They have a mantra of, almost kind of burn the game film, and we're going to move on. And whoever the opponent was next, you just, they say there are things you can learn from it. It's true to an extent, but really, it's just what you learn is that you got a lot of work to do. You're again, you just came off your first Super Bowl year. Everyone wants to beat you, and um, you gotta really
How
work
about on the
hard.
plane how about on the plane on the way home? How about on the plane on the way home of a game where you got beat bad?
Yeah, I mean, you're afraid not only to not talk, you're afraid to cough. You just don't want to make any sounds. You just want it over with. You just want to be like, you get a meal on the way home. Okay, I won't be talking during that. And um, I guess what you fret over is, the players are right behind you, and you just keep seeing trainers going back there with a look on their face, like, and it's like, it's bad enough we lost, but oh no, who are you going to see, bud? Who are you going to see, Chris Fischetti? Who's hurt? Um, that just rubs salt in the wound.
Are the players like noticeably quieter usually after a tough game like that?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. You don't. They're whispering too. Reading the room and the plane. Uh, yep. You just.
All right, interesting. So we'll move on. Same season, rematch, AFC divisional round, the same round that we'll be seeing on Sunday. It's Chiefs at Bills. The Bills still, they won the division. They had home field advantage throughout the playoffs in '91. The Chiefs did not win the division, so the Chiefs came to Buffalo, and the Bills won 37-14. Kind of one of maybe the more hidden playoff games in that '90s run. Not super memorable because it really wasn't close. But man, I remember going into that game, the Christian Okoye, Barry Word Express was kind of out of control, and that was the talk of the town: is how are you going to slow those two guys down after they ran all over us in the regular season.
Yeah, they had a guy named Harvey Williams too, who was a really good all-purpose back, annoying to
Long
watch.
neck,
Yeah,
really
long
long
neck,
neck.
like a Merton Hanks kind of, like disproportionately, like
Yes.
could not see it, almost cartoonish. And it was scary too because on defense, Neil Smith was a beast inside on the D line, and Derek Thomas was um, he was like their Cornelius Bennett, actually kind of better. I think he once had like 7 or 8 sacks in one game, and he was a force. But I do remember being around the locker room, and the team had not forgotten this. Maybe like Doug, how would they? But they had not forgotten that earlier Week 5 loss, and um, I even remember players like Andre Reed and guys like Leon Seals. For some reason, it just jumps in my head saying, "Guys, come on, it's Chiefs week. It's Chiefs week. Like this is a big deal." Or we know we got our hands full, but we got them here. Like, that's another lesson too, right? If you keep playing well for the rest of the year, as bad a loss as that was in week 5, it was just one loss.
Yeah, that is interesting that it somehow it became Chiefs week, right? Like, before 1991, there was no such thing in Buffalo as Chiefs week.
No,
So the fact that that game happened and was kind of a marker for the rest of the season, and then the revenge game, it propelled them to the Super Bowl in 91. So, that game ends, and famously the Bills move on. They beat the Broncos the next week, and they go to Super Bowl 26. They don't play in the 92 season, and then they play again in 1993 on November 28th, 1993, in Kansas City again, and Kansas City wins 23-7 again. Another really non-competitive game for a Super Bowl era team on the road in Kansas City. You remember that one?
I do, not as well as the 91 game, but I do remember it. And you'd have to look at the stats here, but I remember a couple things. I think that Harvey Williams again was annoying, kind of in a Jim Jensen kind of way that we talked about it with the Dolphins, where he just kind of did it all. Or Wayne Corbett, but the big difference was the Chiefs were going for it, and they had somehow brought over Marcus Allen, who was in the twilight of his
Yep.
career, but more importantly, they had a quarterback, Joe Montana, and Montana looked like the old Joe Montana. He had a back injury. People thought he was going to be out of the league. He came back, and Steve Young was incredible for the 49ers. There was no room for both of them. So the Chiefs got Montana, and he looked like every bit of the Joe Montana the whole NFL world had been watching. And it was another scary thing. Like, okay, 91, they destroyed us the regular season, but we came back and took care of business in the playoffs. Here we go. Can we do that again now that they have Montana and Allen and a really good cast?
They became like their national profile obviously got raised to a whole nother level with at the time probably the greatest quarterback of all time in Joe Montana, and then Marcus Allen was Super Bowl winning running back, clear Hall of Famer. They were a national team at that point. Where in 91 they probably weren't. By 93 they were a marquee team, primetime games, odds-on favorites to probably make the Super Bowl in 93, and like you said, they were kind of all in. So, you come off another loss at the House of Horrors, which was Arrowhead Stadium then, and for the playoffs now. And then we get to the 1993 AFC Championship game, probably until, recently, the most famous Bills-Chiefs game, in their storied rivalry. Talk to me about, before that game that was going for the 4th straight Super Bowl. You've told the story about how you were the last person to talk to the team after that game on the way to Atlanta for Super Bowl 28. What do you remember about the vibes before that game?
Yeah, I mean, it was very similar to 91 where, look, this team, they took care of, they beat us handily in the regular season. But again, history repeated itself. We've got them at home again. This one's for the Super Bowl. And, but, in order to do it, we're going to have to beat the greatest quarterback of all time and one of the greatest running backs of all time. But I don't know what was said in the locker room before that, but it had a very similar vibe to 91. And, this time, Thurman Thomas and, during the game, it was domination for us over them, and a little bit surprising, but a great feeling to take care of them that day.
Let me set the scene for you. For 18-year-old me, freshman in college,
Yeah,
I had been to both of the other AFC Championship games. Then the '92 one obviously is in Miami. I absolutely wanted to go to this game. My friend and his dad had season tickets. Uh, I needed one seat. I had a ride. I had a tailgate party. I had everything I needed except for a seat. So Don, you know how I bought a seat in January of 1994? I looked in the
you
Buffalo
tell.
News classified ads.
What?
Buffalo News classified ads. I called a guy who said he had one ticket. I met him at the Nickel City Cafe, on Ogden and wherever that was, on William and Ogden, right near the 190. I had $75, and my mom went with me and thought I was way overspending for this ticket to sit way up in the 300 level. 75 bucks in 1994 was still quite a bit of money. And we exchanged the ticket for the money, hard ticket. I had no idea whether the ticket was legit or not. It took all the way to Sunday to get in. 1 o'clock game, sitting all the way in the 300s upper deck. That's how I got admission to Bills Chiefs AFC Championship game. The Buffalo News classified ads.
That is old school, and honestly, I think maybe the only time I've ever heard of someone obtaining a ticket in that way. Leave it to you.
Yeah, it was clearly a hot ticket, and I was very skeptical. But the guy seemed trustworthy, and he had one ticket, and it looked like a real ticket. I mean, were there a lot of fakes back then?
Yeah, that was a problem. Yeah, security had their hands full, the ushers. But I was going to say back, that was pre-cell phone era. Well, a lot would have been different then. But even then, if they at least had a camera phone, it'd be like you could, see a picture of it. Wow, that was quite a risk you
I was
took.
flying blind. I was flying absolutely blind. But I didn't have a hookup yet then, and I figured, you know what, I had earned the money. I obviously wanted to go to the game, and my streak is still intact, as is yours, probably, of being at every AFC Championship game at home. So we might have to have a chat next week if things break the right way. So we'll move along.
I
The
thought I saw a guest
'94
popped in
team
here.
beat Kansas
Josh.
City. Yeah, he's gonna pop back on in about 10 minutes.
You got that? Okay, I want to make sure
So
you're hosting this show. Okay.
yeah, no problem. We're lucky enough to be joined in about 10 minutes by LaShawn German. I can't wait to talk to him about all the great stuff that he does for Bills Mafia and fans. I don't want to call him a super fan because I don't think that does justice for what he does and what he provides. For Bills Mafia and content and content and giveaways. So I'm really curious to hear his story and learn more about him and why he does what he does. So he's going to be
Yeah, me
popping
too.
back on in about 10 minutes.
All right,
So
you
I'm
got it. I figured
looking
you
forward
had
to
it.
that.
Okay.
No problem. So we're going to run through this. '94 team beats the Chiefs 44-10. The kind of underrated game, and the game I brought up to you last night, you called it the Tony Klein game. The last game of the '96 season, the Bills were on a slide. It basically became a win and get in game. The Bills and the Chiefs both needed to win the game. The game was at home. It was right before Christmas in '96. You know what I remember about that game, Tom? That was my last game in the stands before I became an intern. And I remember somehow I had like high level 100 tickets. And I'll never forget that was like when the lease and all of the, stadium negotiations had just started. And George Pataki and Mario Cuomo were both in Ralph Wilson's box. And do you remember that?
No, but it sounds like something Mr. Wilson would do just for the fun of it.
Yeah, there was a lot of talk about, that was the end of the '96 season. I think the lease was up in '97, right? And they were going to get an extension and all that.
98, right?
And I was it night? Did it end in '98? Well, this was right when it all became kind of public knowledge and was really kind of on the front burner. And I very vividly remember watching the politicians in Mr. Wilson's box, thinking, man, they can't lose this team. Like that would be, and in winning that game was important because then you got into the playoffs and they kept, you wanted to be good. And there was a lot on that game for a game that probably most people don't really remember.
Well, I think the weirdest part was it was a little bit of a flip of the script because if I recall, Sports Illustrated at the beginning of that year predicted was going to be the Bills and the Packers in the Super Bowl. Kelly versus Favre, and it made sense. But it was a little bit surprising that the national media, at least Peter King, still viewed the Bills as a Super Bowl favorite in the AFC, given that the players, the top guys, the core of the team was definitely in the twilights of their career, but he thought they had enough left in the tank. So I want to say we get to like six and what 3 games. I think you said when we talked last time about the season, team lost
3-game
3 in a
slide.
row. Yep. Yeah, like they were 9-3 and went to 9-6, and that game, that regular season game, determined not just seeding, but whether or not the team would make the playoffs at all. And it became such an important game, whereas 3 weeks prior to that, you didn't foresee that it was going to be that important.
Correct. Yeah, it kind of snuck up on you. They went on a little late season slide and became winning it in. Then obviously they lost the next week. Jim Kelly's last game, Ken Hull's last game to the Jaguars in a game that nobody saw coming. You thought they made a righted the ship after that Chiefs game. Let's zoom forward here. 97, the Chiefs beat the Bills in Arrowhead. Man, the Bills just never won in Arrowhead until I was there in 2000, and we went to Kansas City. I enjoyed my night there the night before. Went out for some barbecue. Got to see Union Station.
Got the meat.
And you know what struck me, Don, and yeah, something like that. What struck me, and I remember by that time, Marty Schottenheimer was no longer the coach of the Chiefs, and he came through one Bills drive at some point during that season. And I don't remember when. And it was kind of like an awkward relationship. Do you know, did Mr. Wilson and Marty Schottenheimer have a falling out, or because I think it was his first time back, in Buffalo, and Wade welcomed him in, and it was kind of awkward. Do you remember that at all?
No, I remember. I mean, Marty Schottenheimer had Buffalo ties to, back in his early days as an assistant, and but he was viewed as kind of the best coach in the league that never won the Super Bowl, next to Marv. But I remember there was talk about possibility of him being around, but I don't remember the details of that at all, or much.
Yeah, he just kind of randomly showed up at the building, one day, and it's like, oh, there's Marty Schottenheimer, someone who I've watched on my TV for the last 20 years. It's just kind of one of those random cameos that you got from time to time, at One Bills Drive when you were downstairs in the locker room. Let's go through the drought era real quick.
Rumors run what's he doing here? Why would he be here?
Yep.
Not just popping in for coffee, right?
Exactly right. So, the drought era here, your specialty. Some more losses against Kansas City, a 17-16 game. Talk to me about 38-5.
What year was that?
03. 38-5, Don. In Kansas City, October of 03.
Yeah, no, that was just another beatdown yet another beatdown at Arrowhead, and obviously the 5. Clearly there was a safety, but I don't.
It just kind of sticks with you there.
Yeah, I mean, just the oddity of it, but not that it made any difference. It was just chalk another one.
That feels like a drought era special there, a 38-5 loss on the road. I know you mentioned November of 08 is an oddity. In Arrowhead, you won 54-31.
Let's see. I remember, I think it was either that game or a game in 11 where I don't want to get ahead of ourselves, but 54. Yeah, I think that was Trent Edwards was playing at that point.
Just shocking to beat him there. Marshawn Lynch had a big game. Just surprising. Anytime you could win at Arrowhead, it felt like an accomplishment. Yeah. And especially for those, mid 2000s Bills, the idea of getting a win there.
50 spot is things were looking
right on. Absolutely. So we're about 5 minutes from LaShawn joining us.
Yeah, okay.
So let's fast forward to today. Obviously everybody knows the history of the last few years of Bills Chiefs. And I wanted to ask you a question. Where does this game Sunday rank for you on the biggest home games in Bills history? Not after the game, because you could obviously put the comeback game as either 1 or 1A, but that was because of the result of the game and how the game played out. Pre-game, if you're in the stadium 15 minutes before kickoff and you say, this is the blank most important or biggest home game in Buffalo Bills history, where do you put it?
Oh man, I hadn't thought about it in that context.
Well, let me give you my take, and then you can react to it.
Sure.
I think this is the second biggest home game in Buffalo Bills history. The Raiders 51-3, first AFC Championship game, first ever, trip to the Super Bowl on the line. The Persian Gulf War, beginning, just going on. That team was, going to be a favorite to go to the Super Bowl. I feel like that is the most important and biggest home game in Buffalo Bills history. Everything had led to that, the no huddle offense, the 2 years before, the 88 AFC Championship game, and then the Ronnie Harmon game. Like that's going to be really tough to ever beat as the biggest home game in Bills history. First chance to get to the Super Bowl, etc. The other two AFC Championship games, obviously the stakes were higher. You get to the Super Bowl, but they were, I don't know how to describe this, but they don't feel quite as big because you'd just been there and done that. This True. Is now 30 something years later of pent up, angst, frustration, 2 generations more of Bills fans who have gone through all the heartache and all the losses and all the things. And then because it's the Chiefs and because of how the last few seasons have ended,
right,
and you finally get them at home and you've won, 6 in a row here and everything's building again. This just feels like, to me, it's the second biggest home game in Bills history. I mean, tell me I'm wrong.
You make quite a case. I mean, I think you're right. When you go back to the 90s teams, the first one obviously had all that on the line to get to the Super Bowl for the first time. The other two, were right in there on the Mount Rushmore, but at least no matter what ever happened, the team had gotten to a Super Bowl. But there was still a deep desire to finally win one. But those teams won at home. I think we said that 4-year Super Bowl run in the playoffs, they went 9-0 in the playoffs in those 4 years. Now this team, historically, obviously, Kansas City has been a thorn in the side and has had some regular season success against them. But the first time that, whatever you want to say about Kansas City, they don't look the same as they have. But they're still Kansas City, and until the Bills beat them, then they still haven't beaten them. It's overly simplistic, but I feel they totally dominated a demoralized Miami team last week. So you might look at it and be like, maybe the regular season game came down to one play that got called back, rightly so, on an offensive offsides penalty. But the stage is set. I don't know where I'd rank it, but I give you credit. You make quite a case for it to be.
You keep thinking about that, and I'm going to give you two historical references I've seen this week of where this rivalry is, and with other rivalries, one in another sport. This feels a lot like, to me, of the everybody watched The Last Dance. This feels a lot Bulls Pistons, 88, 89, 90. The Pistons were the bad boys. They were the big boys. They kept beating the Bulls until the Bulls finally beat the Pistons. You had to beat the Pistons to get to the Super Bowl or to get to the NBA championship. The other one I really liked was Colts Patriots in the early 2000s. The Colts had to keep going to New England, and they kept losing in New England every single time. Peyton Manning can't win a big game. Tom Brady owns Peyton Manning, blah, 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 blah. Finally, they get the Patriots at home for the AFC Championship game. That's that famous 4th and 3 game where the Patriots went for it and didn't get it. And the Colts finally got over the hump and finally beat the Patriots. And it feels like to me that those are like the two examples of other rivalries that this rivalry really kind of reminds me of.
Those are pretty strong parallels, I got to say.
LaShawn, my man, how are you?
I'm fantastic. How you fellas doing?
Great. Thanks for being with us.
We're doing great. We're gonna throw you right into the fire here, buddy. I said that this is the second biggest home game in Buffalo Bills history after the Raiders 51-3 game to go to the first Super Bowl. you being, you and being as active as you are online, and we're going to get into, your journey. Where do you put this game?
Well, actually, when that happened, I was about 6 years old. So I vaguely remember it. But for my life, this is the biggest home game in Buffalo of my career for sure. I don't,
That's
I mean, I can't think of a close second. For me, this has to be number one.
All right, so we're gonna go backwards here, LaShawn, and I come to really admire and appreciate your work on Twitter/X. Maybe we like to have people come on here and kind of talk to us about their football journey. Maybe you could kind of take us back throughout your life. How'd you become a Bills fan? And how did you get to the place where you are now?
Okay, actually, I was born in 1984. I started watching the Bills when, during the Super Bowl years, Bruce Smith, Thurman Thomas, Jim Kelly, and all of those Hall of Famers. That's when I first started watching football. And I'm actually from Hempstead, Long Island, so I'm about 7 hours from Buffalo. So growing up, my childhood, going to junior high school, there were no Bills fans around. Where I'm from, it's Jets country, Giants country, 49ers, Steelers, Cowboys, it's everybody except the Buffalo Bills. So through it all, it's been me and probably like one other Bills fan I pretty much met like my whole life growing up. So it's definitely been fun, like that helped develop, like for me, like an underdog mentality, like always, everyone, having to go through the 4 Super Bowl losses and everyone telling me, the Bills will never win a Super Bowl. And my best friend's a 49ers fan. He has all of those Super Bowls. My other best friend is a Cowboys fan. My niece and nephew Steelers fan. So it's like everyone around me has nothing but Super Bowls, and I'm little old Buffalo over here. But I definitely wouldn't change it for the world. So that Super Bowl run, pretty much aged me. I became a Bills fan then, and after that, we had a really good 90s. And then after the Music City Miracle, we had the 17-year playoff drought. I wouldn't, wish that on my worst enemy. So I've been through quite a bit as a Bills fan.
Nice. Yeah, when I say nice, I'm complimenting your memory and the way you chronologically went through it all. Obviously, you've given that a lot of thought. It's well ingrained in you. But yeah, that sets the stage for this, building on what Josh said just before you came on about how big this game is.
So LaShawn, the Bills become good again. Social media becomes more aspect of everybody's life. What propelled you? What made you, decide to go, on Twitter to become more of, there are these fans who become, kind of pseudo celebrities. They become well known to all of Bills Mafia. Like, when did you kind of decide to take the leap of, hey, I'm going to start, posting more. I'm going to be active on there. I'm going to do the amazing giveaways that I do. Was that a conscious choice you made, or did it just kind of grow organically?
Well, I actually joined Twitter X now a little over a decade ago, probably about 11 years ago. And I actually joined because I'm really good friends with Sal Capaccio. I'm sure you guys know
Yeah,
Sal.
yeah, yeah.
And one day he just said to me, man, like I didn't know too much about Twitter at the time. He was like, man, you gotta, you're such a huge Bills fan. It's, Bills Mafia has a huge presence on Twitter. So why don't you just join? So I said, you know what, let me try it out. And, it's been an amazing journey. But as for like the giveaways, I've been doing that for about a decade now. And when I first started, it was totally random. I don't know, man. I just grew up with a big heart and I like putting smiles, like on other people's faces. So I actually, like one of the first people I did a giveaway with, they actually reached out to me a couple months ago and told me like, yeah, you sent me to a game about 10 years ago. And I was like, wow, it's been that long. But I have so much fun doing it, sometimes the tickets, it'll be like a fan sitting with me, like the Houston Texans playoff game. I gave away like 15 tickets to that game, and then other Bills fans started sending me tickets to give away. So it was probably about 30 of us heading into that playoff game in 2019. And a big block of us sat together, and it's just like great memories. And sometimes it's fans that don't live in Buffalo, they can't make it to Buffalo, so sometimes I'm able to provide them with 2 tickets plus airfare, or if they're in Buffalo, I ask them to come and tailgate with me at the Bills Mafia House. It's just a great experience for everybody. It's more for like the fans as opposed to me, and I've just been doing it for a while, and it's contagious, and like I just can't help it, man.
Man, I'm so impressed with what you do. Honestly, it seems very selfless. I'm sure you don't make anything off of this. Don, just for an example, like he's giving away 2 field level seats for Sunday.
Yeah.
To the hottest game here in a long, long time. He runs a bunch of giveaways. I've seen him for years now on there. Giving away seats, opportunities to people who might not be able to go, airfare, which is just nuts. Like that's next level stuff. Maybe LaShawn, take us through.
Awesome.
What are some of your like favorite memories of people who have won, people like you talked about, the guy who would spend 10 years, people who maybe haven't seen a game, didn't have access to traveling or anything like that. That's got to feel so good.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Actually, last year I had I brought with me, it was a father and a daughter, and they were just like the cutest couple, and I was able like to give them some really nice tickets. And the daughter, her name is slipping me, pardon me for that, but that was her first Bills game ever, and she told her dad, like, after the game, like, oh, I want to go back, and I love Josh Allen and I love the Buffalo Bills. And, like it's one of the biggest things, like for the kids, and putting a smile on their faces. And, like the seats are, like really nice. So being that close to the players and the action and things like that. So that was definitely one situation. Also, I brought a crew with me to Kansas City in 2021 when we destroyed the Chiefs. That was the regular season game when it was like pouring outside, and it was like an hour rain delay. And that was my first time going to Kansas City, and the crowd was really intense. And like we blew them out in that game. So we were going back and forth with the fans, and like the crew that came with me, I brought like 6 people with me, and we all had a really good time. So just flying around the country and meeting up with Bills fans I never met before. And, like to this day, I'll still get DMs from them or text messages, and we'll talk about the experiences. And it's just, like dope reaching out and meeting all these different Bills fans. Because like I said, growing up, I didn't have any Bills fans. I didn't have any friends that was Bills fans. So now I had to wait till my adulthood to, meet all these Bills fans. And so I'm catching up for lost time.
That's awesome. I picture like when you talk about providing someone the first experience at a Bills game, and I don't know how the day plays out. If you see them before the game, you probably do, but they still haven't experienced the game itself. So they have the national anthem, the player intros, and they're at their seats. And I don't know. I picture you maybe. Do you ever at halftime say, "Hey, I'm going to come check on you, see how you're doing," and like the anticipation of just seeing them, and you're seeing them after they've seen their first half of NFL football, and you're like, "So what do you think?" And just and I'm sure for as much as they've heard and even what you've said, it probably still has had to have exceeded their expectations.
Absolutely. Like I've had a couple Bills fans, I like to get in there early so I can watch the players warm up and get to my section so I can get all, you know, lathered up and ready to, go crazy the entire game. But one time I had a couple sit with me. It was father and a son, and they were actually able to play. The son was actually able to play catch with Stephon Diggs, because Diggs goes out there before the game and he plays, catch with the fans. So one of them was able to catch a football from Diggs, and like they always tell me about it. And the father DMs me and says the son talks about it all the time. But yeah, so if they're not sitting with me, a lot of times fans, reach out to me and say, "Can we meet at halftime?" And sometimes I normally don't like to leave my my seat, I don't even like to leave my seat to use the bathroom. Like, I'm locked in. I don't want to move. I just want to destroy the team we playing. You know, I'm a psycho. But, you know, sometimes at halftime, I go meet somebody in the concourse, or they'll come to my seat and we'll take pictures and things like that. So, I mean, I love every minute of it, man. I love Bills Mafia.
Do you prefer to come to a game here, in Buffalo, or do you prefer going on the road, with a crew? And because when I worked for the team, I always enjoyed the road games because it felt like it was you against 70,000 people, and traveling on the team bus through the parking lot and the hotel, and you're in an enemy territory. I loved the road games. I loved the vibes of the road games. I loved everything about the road games, unless we lost, of course. But what do you like coming here, or do you prefer going on the road?
That is a great question, sir. And to answer that question, I definitely love coming to Buffalo. I tailgate at the Bills Mafia house. It's a quick walk to the stadium. I love seeing all my Bills fans, but I tell everyone it's nothing like being on the road. Like when
There
we're
you
in
go.
Nashville and it's a takeover, when we're in Kansas City and it's not that many Bills fans, when we're in Miami and it's another takeover. I love walking it's a saying, walk in your trap, take over your trap. I love walking into an opposing stadium. I'm like I said, man, I'm a nut. So I'm on 100 as soon as I walk, as soon as they scan my phone and they let me in that stadium. I'm talking trash, never disrespectful, but I'm talking trash. Josh Allen, we here. I'm hyping everybody up. And like by the time I get to my seat, I know the people sitting around me is like, who is this guy? We've never met someone like him before. But to answer your question, on the road and how good this team has been since like 2020, we win a lot of games. So going on the road, beating another team and the fans can't do nothing about it. It's amazing. So I love going on the road and beating
You
somebody in their
used
own building.
you used the word takeover there,
Hmm.
and it's interesting because you could feel like you have a takeover just because of the number of fans that are there are probably surprising to the other team and even the media to an extent. But for it truly to be a takeover, it has to be, I would think, when it's the end of the game and you finally go up two scores and there's only 4 minutes left and you got the ball and you start to see the home fans, start to leave, and then you just feel like that's when it's truly been a takeover, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. A perfect description of that. I've been to quite a few road games where the Bills are winning and the home team starts to leave, and then all the Bills fans go down to like the lower bowl or like the entrance to where the Josh Allen and the Bills come in and out at. That's happened in New Orleans for Thanksgiving a couple years ago. That just happened in Miami a couple weeks ago when we went there and beat them for the division. That's happened in Tennessee. It happens at quite a few road games where the Bills are up, the home team knows that we're going to win, they leave, and then we just flood the lower bowl and we're going crazy the entire time. So I know exactly
You're
what you're describing, brother.
your passion is infectious here, and I'm happy to say that I'm. This game rises to the level of me going to the game on Sunday, Don. I have tickets, and I'm going to go. My wife shares season tickets, and she goes to almost every game. But I'm going to go to this game, LaShawn. And I'm telling you, if the Bills win and the breaks are right, and Houston somehow walks into Baltimore and wins, my co-host here, I'm going to talk him into going next week to the biggest Bills game in forever, because he has not come back to the stadium, since he was let go in 2017. We're gonna have that conversation, and maybe you can help me get him hyped to go if by chance the Bills win next week. I know he's not happy with me right now saying this
Oh, hey, listen,
live
no,
on
this is not the
YouTube.
first time you brought it up. It didn't come out
Well,
of
this
left
time I
field.
mean it, Don. We're getting your ass there if they have the AFC Championship game home. LaShawn, take me through maybe the ugly side of Twitter, right? I see a lot of times, famously Miami fans. There was a couple Chiefs fans that I see. How much blowback do you get? Do you get a lot of trolls? Do you get a lot of people, giving you, shit for what you do or how passionate you are, or how you're out there? Because I mean, frankly, you got 25,000 followers on X. You're gonna get some negativity. What's that like for you?
Wow, man, another great question. I've been doing this, like I said, for over a decade now. And up until this year, like everything's been fine. I really haven't had any issues or anything like that. But this year, I don't know, man. I don't know. It's like the year of the troll or something, man. Like a couple weeks ago, when I went to Miami, I had posted a picture of me getting ready to at the airport. I normally do that when I'm about to fly into whatever city, and I sent the tweet out. I didn't say anything, derogatory about the Dolphins or anything like that. But like by the time I landed, I had so many Dolphins fans attacking me. They were attacking my appearance. They were like, it was, I don't know, it was weird, man. Like I really didn't know how to handle it, because it was like the first time like a whole fan base, like I don't know, it's probably like 30 different Dolphins fans, and like I clapped back at them. I'm not going to just sit there and take it, but like they were pissed off about that. They were pissed off about us, taking over out there. But where we were located was Fort Lauderdale and not Miami, so they, like they was pissed that we were saying we took over, Miami when we were in Fort Lauderdale. But like that was really that was one of those nasty sides. The Dolphins went after me, but after we went in there and punched them in the face, I couldn't find any of those Dolphins fans. Well, some of them apologized and said, "Well, we were just trolling you," and things like that. But up into this year, it didn't really get ugly. But I mean, Dolphins week, that was a pretty ugly experience. That was probably one of my only ones.
It's interesting. You gotta, if you put yourself in their shoes, like that has to be one really frustrated fan base. They had the Bills up 7 points going into the fourth quarter. They hold on to that game. They're the 2 seed playing at home. Instead, they let it slip away, to the Bills' credit, after the punt return and a couple good drives, and and let it slip away and end up going to one of the coldest games in NFL history rather than being at home. And it's the Bills who get the 2 seed, and so you could just see them nitpicking about splitting hairs. Oh, it wasn't Miami, it was Fort Lauderdale. Okay, it was still South Florida, but so good for you for taking it. And I'm sure you took the high road.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
what was funny, Don? LaShawn, Don wouldn't know this. I loved how you posted where your seat was. You're like, come see me. I enjoyed that, buddy. I really did. I'm like, this is my guy right here. You were in whatever row, whatever it was, of section, whatever. You're like, come
Yeah, I
see
was in
me.
the front row. Yep.
I'll be following now.
I'm
for sure, I
assuming.
can tell you.
Yeah, he's a great follow. He's a great follow on X for sure. I want to ask you a couple more questions before we wrap this up. Your pinned tweet is a picture of you and what looks like Josh Allen's family. And you said, I had no idea I was going to this event, or I would have been properly dressed. But that isn't the point. I became friends with a great person, the best QB on the planet, and the man who saved the franchise. Tell me about that experience.
Yeah, that was so cool. I was that actually wasn't his family. It was just a few other people, like in the know, few very important people. But I was actually with Jeffrey Gunlatch, and I don't know if you know
Mm.
who that is, but you can actually Google him. He's big time. I was with him and his wife, and that was actually a charity that Josh Allen was at. And like I said, I had no idea that I was even going. I was at dinner with Mr. and Mrs. Gunlatch. They're huge Bills fans. I've been to a couple of Bills games with them, and they asked me if I wanted to go, and I'm like, sure, sure, let's go, let's do it. I don't have anything to do anyway, so like when we pulled up in the window, I saw Josh Allen. I was like, oh my God, like that's Josh Allen. Like that's our quarterback. That's arguably the best quarterback on the planet outside of Patrick Mahomes. So, like we got inside. I tried to keep it cool. I didn't want to, like just, I don't know. I'm sure he gets it all the time. People starstruck and running up to him for pictures and things like that. So I didn't want to be that guy. So I kept it kind of cool. And then later on into the charity, we ended up like in the same area, and somebody introduced me to him, and I spoke to him for like 3 minutes and told him who I was, and just so happy you're our quarterback, and I'm rooting for you, and I can't wait for you to take us to a Super Bowl. And funny enough, he said to me like, I I actually know who you are. And I was like, come on, Josh, you pulling my leg.
Nice.
There's no way you know who I am. But then he started telling me a little bit. And I'm like, wow, this is crazy, man. How in the world does Josh Allen know me? He's like the most famous person in Buffalo, probably the best player in our history, and he knows who I am. So it's just a night I'll never forget. I never pinned tweets before that. So, I mean, that just shows you how important it is to me. And I see it every day. Every time I open up Twitter, X, whatever you call it, I always see that pinned tweet like, damn, man, I met
That's
Josh Allen.
that's I was going to ask you if he knew by chance who you were. That had to feel you were the king of the world, my man. That's some good stuff. And Jeffrey Gundlach, for people that don't know, he is like the newest benefactor of the Albright Knox Art Gallery, Don, and he's the guy who funded the new wing of the Albright Knox Art Gallery. He's done really well for himself. Out in like hedge funds in California, and he has, he was kind of rumored. Maybe if Terry Pegula hadn't stepped in to buy the team, I thought for a while he was one of the guys that might have been able to put something together to keep the team in Buffalo, and that's a good person to know, Sean.
That's correct. He was interested in purchasing the Bills. And real quick, sorry, man, I could talk for days, but real quick,
No, let's do it. We got nowhere to be. Let's go.
how we met each other. The Bills actually ended our 17-year playoff drought, and I had called into Sal Capaccio's show. And normally when you call into a radio show, talk show, they'll let you talk for like a minute and a half, then they got to go. They got to get to other callers. But
If that,
I had,
right.
yeah, if that, exactly. But I had told Sal, like, if we make the playoffs, let me be your first caller, man. And like I've been on his show previously, so he knows how crazy I get. So I called into the show and he let me go for almost 14 minutes. I was crying on the airwaves. Like Bills fans I was gaining so many followers. Bills fans was tweeting me pictures of them crying. It was just a momentous moment when we ended that playoff drought. And Jeffrey Gundlach actually heard it live, and he actually played it back to like his workers and stuff like that. So he reached out to Sal and was like, who is this guy? Like, who is this guy? I need to meet him. And then, he reached out to me. He took me last year to the season opener in LA when we went to the Rams and we destroyed them. I sat with him and his lovely wife. This season we sat together in Buffalo, me, him, and his lovely wife, when we destroyed the Dolphins. So every time we sit together, we blow the teams out. So that's just a quick story Go ahead.
Is he coming Sunday?
I don't believe he's coming Sunday. I don't believe he's coming Sunday, but I do believe if the Bills make it to the Super Bowl, I do believe he has a ticket for me come Super Bowl Sunday. So we become boys. Like we text each other like every other week. So he's a good friend of mine.
There's such a life lesson there, and you talk about people that are in these powerful positions, and for the most part, they worked their way through, and maybe they got breaks here, but they took advantage of it, and they just never gave up. But along the way, I've seen this, and they appreciate genuine people, and obviously, when he heard you on the radio, he picked up on that right away, and he's like, just somebody I want to have around to be with, and like Josh said earlier, your enthusiasm is infectious and for real.
Yeah, absolutely. Just I was just a blessing. I'm happy.
Great story.
Big game on Sunday. We got to get this dub.
Absolutely. Couple more things before we wrap this up. So you oh man, I lost my train of thought, and that almost never happens to me. I was gonna ask you what so home games. So you're doing a giveaway here, and you're down to your final 20. I love how you build the anticipation. What's your normal routine for a home game? When do you fly in? You stay obviously one night, 2 nights, and then what do you do on game days?
I'll normally fly in on a Saturday. It depends on work. Sometimes if I'm lucky, it'll be Saturday morning. A lot of times it'll be Saturday evening, Saturday night. I have like a group of diehard Bills fans up there that always, take good care of me when I come out there. So sometimes we'll, like go to Bar Bill, or we'll go somewhere to sit down, have some good wings, and like watch whatever games are coming on Saturday, whether it's NFL in the playoffs or college, if it's not in the playoffs. So Saturday I'll fly in, hang out, go to my hotel, and then Sunday morning I'll actually drive, or if I'm riding with somebody, we'll carpool to the Bills Mafia house. That's where I normally tailgate at. So if it's a 1 o'clock game, I'll get there at like, I don't know, 8:30, 8:30ish, 9 o'clock the latest. And then it's really a nice spot. A whole bunch of Bills fans, gathered there. Great environment, great people. You can actually see the Bills Stadium from the backyard. It's that close. So I'll tailgate there till probably about 11:30 or so, and then I'll head into the stadium, watch the players warm up, watch Diggs play catch with the players and things like that, and just like I'll grab my phone, jump on Twitter X, and talk to other Bills fans, or I'll be in a Twitter space talking to other Bills fans, like right until kickoff. And then once the players come out and it's time to go, I'm locked in. I don't really mess with my phone too much after that, and it's 60 minutes of the Buffalo Bills punching another team in the face.
Wow.
That's great. I remember what I was going to ask you before. I don't know if you remember last year. My father's from New England, and I love, I was born in Buffalo. I love the Bills. I also love the Boston Red Sox. And before the 2004 ALCS, the Red Sox were a tortured fan base, tortured team, hadn't won a World Series in 86 years. Some guy wrote an article called "Win It For," and he listed all of the people that he wanted the Buffalo Bill or the Boston Red Sox to win the World Series for. Last year on our show, I did that, and it got a little bit of traction. And I know you were one person who did retweet it and enjoyed it. And I was kind of wondering who you want the Bills to win this game and then 2 more games for. Like, what does it mean to you other than you? Obviously, we know LaShawn German wants the Bills to win the Super Bowl for himself, but who do you think of when you think of the Bills like finally winning the Super Bowl?
Wow, it's another great question, man. There's a few. Definitely Pancho Villa. He's not here with us anymore, but I know he's smiling down, from heaven. It'd be huge for us to win the Super Bowl for him. It'd definitely be huge for us to win the Super Bowl for Ralph Wilson Jr., great owner before he passed away. He set us up, then let, the Paculas purchase it. He could have, just sent it to the highest bidder, and we could have ended up, in Toronto or in Texas or a bunch of other places. So definitely for him, for keeping the Bills in Buffalo. Mary Wilson, she's a sweetheart. I've met her a few times. I'd say for her, definitely our Hall of Fame players, Jim Kelly, Thurman Thomas, Bruce Smith, Andre Reed, and the boys. That'd be big for them. Some of the huge Super Bills fans I know, my boy Anthony, who I always tailgate with, my homegirl Sarah. Like there's just, there's so many to even, bring up. It's just so many Bills fans. We've been through so much. We've suffered through this, 0-4 in the Super Bowl and the Music City Miracle and the 13 seconds game. I was right there, 2 rows behind the Bills bench. I thought we won the game when Josh Allen hit Gabriel Davis with 13 seconds left. I'm crying into the person's arms that I'm sitting with. The Chiefs fans behind me are just in disbelief, like, wow, the Bills just beat us. And like for that to happen, it's just like all the Bills fans in Buffalo, the Bills fans that's in Florida, the West Coast, everywhere. We got Bills fans in Ireland. We got Bills fans in England. It's just Bills fans everywhere, man. Just for everybody that has been repping this team our whole lives and never seen us win the Super Bowl. So it'd just be momentous. It'd be the biggest and greatest day in my life when that happens. And I'm hoping it is this year in Vegas, and I'm hoping I'm there to watch it in person.
Incredible. For a question you didn't know was coming, man, that just rolled. I mean, again, talk about genuine, all the people that you just thought of the ones that historically, and the ones and groups of people. Man, that's good stuff right there.
Don, should we wrap this up with a 2-minute warning?
I'm good for it if he is.
All right, LaShawn, we do something with former. Yeah, we do something with the former players, coaches, and staff that we have on the program called the 2-minute warning. We're going to ask you like 10 rapid fire questions. We try to keep it to 2 minutes or less. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, just to give people like a different, taste of your personality. So Don, go ahead.
Okay. If you see me looking to the side, it's because that's where the list is. Josh, I know you got it up here, so we'll make it work. But okay. Keeping with the theme, the most interesting place to watch a Bills game. I think it's kind of obvious for you.
Yeah, on the road, definitely. The bigger the road game, the better.
There you go.
All right, so LaShawn, you are the star of the show. You're in an arena. There's dry ice. What's your entrance song?
Okay, in under 2 minutes. I don't know the artist, but that song is actually the song that the Patriots always walk out to and for their Super Bowls, where it go, I. Who is that?
Ozzy Osbourne.
Is that
Crazy Train?
Ozzy Osbourne, Crazy Train.
Okay, I love that song.
Pros.
Good stuff. Don, go
Crazy
ahead.
Train. Yeah. Good stuff. 3 people, dead or alive, you'd want to have dinner with.
Wow. Barack Obama, Josh Allen, Malcolm X.
All right.
There you go. What's your favorite Buffalo restaurant, and what do you get there?
Definitely love Barbell. They have the best wings, and I get my honey butter barbecue wings.
There you go. Nice. What's the best concert you've ever been to?
Best concert. Actually, it was a Snoop Dogg Up in Smoke tour back in like 2001 in Nassau Coliseum in Long Island.
Ooh, nice. Let's take Miami out of the mix. What is the other most annoying fan base in the NFL?
Oh, the New Jersey Jets. I hate the Jets with a passion. I hope they never, ever, ever make the playoffs again. Yep, I hate the Jets as much as any franchise on the planet.
That was a dig. Good. You said you were born in '84, so I think this is relevant. Your favorite cartoon or kid show?
My favorite cartoon was Dragon Ball Z.
All right.
Nice. What's a popular food but you hate it?
Steak. I hate steak.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Wow. All right. So honest. Growing up, did you ever drive a stick shift?
I've never drove stick in my life. I don't know how to drive stick.
It's a strange experience. All right.
Last one here, LaShawn. Maybe you could tell us when your giveaway is and what exactly you're giving away. And I know it's too late to enter now, but just give everybody an idea of what you're actually doing for people this weekend.
Actually partnered up with TickPick. I was doing the giveaways for like a decade, and then finally about 10 months ago, somebody from TickPick finally said, let me reach out to him, and he has such a huge following. Let me partner up with him. So I partnered up with TickPick, and we're actually giving away 2 field level seats to Sunday's game. And I announced the top 20 at 12 o'clock right before I jumped on, and my phone keeps going off. The top 20 are celebrated and excited. And at 5 o'clock today, just tune into my Twitter feed, Warlock6, and I will be announcing the winner who is going to tailgate with me at the Bills Mafia house, and we'll have a great seat to this big clash on Sunday.
Awesome.
Amazing. And you're at the Bills Mafia house, huh? I'm going to swing by and meet you.
Please do. Yep. I'll actually, after this, I'll give you my cell phone number and the DM as well. Just reach out to me. Like I said, great environment. Even if you stop by for 5 minutes, just pull up, come say hi. I'll shout you out.
For sure. All right. It was a pleasure to meet you. I really admire all the things that you do. And if they win the next 2 games, LaShawn, we might need to have a 5-minute hype video with you before the Super Bowl.
Let's do it. I'll send you my number. Reach out to me anytime. Thank you guys so much for having me on. I had a blast, and go Bills.
Been great.
Go Bills. All right. Take care. All right, man. He's a force of nature, Don. Like
How about that?
he really
Yeah.
is. He's a great follow. I really encourage everybody to follow him on X. I really admire what he did. For a long time, he was doing this out of his own pocket. I don't know what his, sponsorship deal now with TickPick is, but this was something he was doing himself, which is like amazing, really impressive. And, I think all he got out of it was the satisfaction of seeing people happy.
Yeah. No, that's tremendous. And you've been talking about him a lot, and I've seen him, but I will promise to be ramping up my interest in and following him a lot more. That was great.
One quick question before we go. You being in the organization like that, and I know things are a little different now than they were, 10, 15 years ago. Do you think a lot of people in the organization are aware of people like him?
Well, yeah, certainly like community relations and marketing, and they follow social media a lot. When you get into like coaches, as that grind.
Yeah, no, they don't.
Really
The coaches don't care.
they don't have the time or the care. I mean, they're all like we've had some coaches on. Charlie Coiner, I think, of the tight ends coach, like they're just all football. They're 99% football. There are a few guys that are 85, 90% football. Those are like the most engaged people, but that's as good as it gets. So, but yeah, around the building, sure, I guarantee they know LaShawn, and they follow him, no question.
Yeah. All right, give me your score for Sunday, and then give me your live odds as to your attendance for the AFC Championship game if it's in Buffalo.
I'll answer the second question first. That is that I would get so much more pleasure out of knowing that somebody was there that has it more like LaShawn, those kind of people.
Dear. What a gross answer. What a gross answer.
I'd be sitting there thinking there are so many more people that would rather be here than me.
Let me wash myself off there. That was as politician of an answer.
Oh no, it's true.
You should be up.
I'd be thinking.
I believe you, but it's that's very New Hampshire primary of you, Don. That was. You could see how you lasted in the NFL for 30 years with that answer. Wow, impressive. Well done.
27 years of being really there, but no, I'd rather someone else, enjoy it.
What's your prediction for Sunday?
As we were on, I saw, but I didn't see who. It said there was an alert came up about injuries. I haven't seen it yet. Is Bernard going to play? Is Taron Johnson going to play?
Sure.
It would be relevant.
They need a couple of those guys to play. Obviously, Rasul Douglas playing is huge. I feel like they can get by if they have 2 of 3 of Rasul Douglas, Taron Johnson, and Terrell Bernard. You need 2 out of those 3 to play. And Taron Johnson Taron Johnson's become my favorite player on the team. I really admire his toughness. Yeah, I've loved him for a couple of years now. He is one of the biggest, picks in Bills history. But even, just the way he plays, the way he throws his body around. I mean, he's a slot nickel corner, and he's, one of their best run defenders. So I'm going to go 23-21 Bills. I think my wife Jody is going to
heart attacks there.
Has about a 3% chance of of not making the game out upright. Like I said,
are you going to be sitting with her or? Are you sitting?
No, she's up. She's in the comfort. She's in the comfy seats with my friends Eric and Pat. My cousin's husband, who is a 25-year Army vet, just recently retired. He is flying up from Augusta, Georgia tonight. He's going to stay with us for a couple of nights, and he and I are going to be going to the game. He is a brave man. He served in Lithuania, and he was in Afghanistan 3 times, so he's used to the cold. So it doesn't really scare him, even though he's from Central Florida, of all places. So he's coming to hang out in Buffalo in mid-January, because who wouldn't want to do that? But I'm going to go 23-21, and I'm going to, 23-21. I don't know why it's in my head, but that's where I'm going to go. And I think Houston has a real puncher's chance on Saturday. Marlon Humphrey is out. They might be too young to know that they shouldn't win this game coming up. And CJ Stroud, my guy Marlon Kerner, who I host the other show with, What Happened on Saturday with Marlon, he loves CJ Stroud from, obviously his Ohio State days, and that kid's fearless. And I think I think there's a 15-20% chance that we're talking next week about a home game.
I think I think they could be. You mentioned earlier the Jacksonville Jaguars of '96. I know that was their second year, but they didn't know any better that they weren't supposed to win that game in Buffalo, but they did. There's something to be said.
That's a really good call.
Yeah, I could see them just here we are. Stroud's a superstar already. It wouldn't shock me to see this game being played at home.
All right, final call. What's the score Sunday?
Oh, you're really putting me on the spot here. I'll see the Bills squeaking it out, but the weather's going to be good. You know, I could see a 27-24, but
there you go.
Right, I'm not very. I haven't been good at predictions. I predicted them to lose in a game that LaShawn mentioned earlier, the opener against the Rams last year, and the Bills clobbered them. So if I was really going to do the Bills fan base a favorite, I would predict them to lose here as well and have the same results.
Well, you got to do your part, right? All right. Hopefully when we join everybody next week, it'll be off of one of the best Bills wins of all time. And thanks everybody for tuning in. Please like and subscribe to the Cover One channel and to our show. Thanks a lot, Tom. See you next week.
Great. Thanks, Josh. See you then.